So on this week's episode, I'm going to meet up with my friend Annie from Remax over at Smoketown Brewing in downtown Frederick. We're going to talk about the business and some tips that she has for home buyers here in Frederick. And of course, we're going to enjoy some awesome beer from our friends at Smoketown.
Right? If it weren't for day drinking, we would not have an industry, and I'm not joking about that. Yeah, absolutely. So my name is David Blackman. I own Smoketown Creekside, this location, and I also own Smoketown Brewing Station in Brunswick. I started the project in 2014 in Brunswick. I felt that Brunswick needed the equivalent of an Irish pub. I wanted to build something where people would come down literally off the hills, if you've been to Brunswick, and have a pint or two and walk home and do that over and over again. So we traditionally have 24 beers on tap. Our most popular beer is the Patsy, which is a New England hazy IPA. Patsy Cline used to sing in my building in Brunswick, so we named a beer after her. It's a great beer, awesome. We had a great calling for people going to Brunswick, asking us to start another location in Frederick, so we accommodated, and here we are. I mean, there are people who travel hundreds of miles to come to Frederick just for the beer scene. You can literally walk to a couple dozen restaurants, bars, distilleries, breweries, never get into your car. It's awesome. Great walking town. We have people come to the brewery, say, hey, I just moved here, and one of the main reasons we moved to this town was because the brewery is downtown.
Hey, Annie.
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
So I'm doing great. We're here at Smoketown Brewery in downtown. It's really awesome.
Yes.
Thank you to them for having us out. It's cool space. You guys will get to see a little highlight reel about them and a little bit about their beer and how they started. But I am drinking the Patsy, which I learned is named after Patsy Cline. What do you have?
I got an Apple Annie.
Apple Annie. Sounds like that's a custom name.
It is. It's a half cider, half seltzer, and it's my favorite.
Nice. Well,
I
cheers.
always get that. Cheers.
We're going to talk business today.
Awesome.
All right. How did you get into the business? Like, I want to know your story, because a lot of people, you're starting to pop up on their social media. They're starting to see Pricing Maryland, which is really cool, really nice. So let's get to know you a little bit and see how you got started into the business, and we'll go from there.
Awesome. So before I was in real estate, I was a buyer for a jewelry store chain in Baltimore. Loved it. Loved my job there. It was my dream job. That's what I went to school for, fashion merchandising.
Nice.
But once I moved to Frederick to move in with my lovely husband, John, it was kind of just a little too far of a commute for me.
Baltimore to Frederick to Baltimore?
Yes. Yeah, yes.
For sure.
So I decided to pick up real estate, which I love. It's the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really found my passion, and I really found something I love doing, which is helping people, whether it's first-time home buyers or first-time investors or my repeat clientele that I love working with. It's something new every day, and it's an exciting job.
Okay, that's awesome. I didn't know you were into jewelry like that. I didn't know that's what you did before.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it. Cool.
Yeah.
So now that you've been doing it, what, 3 years?
3 years.
Okay. So now that you've been doing it for 3 years, what's something that you wish you knew back then that you know now that might have saved you a headache getting into the business? Put you on the spot.
Something. All right, say it one more time.
All right. So from 3 years that you've been in the business, what's something you've learned over that time that you wish you would have learned earlier in your career?
I feel like I'm going to give you kind of a trick answer.
Okay.
Because in this business, you learn something new every single day.
Of course.
I've seen a lot of transactions, a lot of ins and outs. Before I was a full agent, I was a transaction coordinator, and I've overseen over 200 transactions at this point, and every single transaction is something new.
Everyone's different.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
There's got to be something. There's got to be something. I'm going to pressure you. What's that something? Something
I wish I knew when I started.
Because that was a nice packaged answer. But there's got to be something that's like, Bert, you know what? Now that I know this has saved me. And it doesn't have to be like a behind the curtains giving away your secret, but something that maybe a client out there that might be hiring you doesn't realize that this is what makes you stand out.
You know, really, I guess what I've learned over the last 3 years is that the real estate industry is all about relationships, whether it's relationships with other agents and you have those relationships to help get deals done, or relationships with clients and finding out what they're really looking for and really getting to know them and what they want their lifestyle to be like.
Yeah.
That probably is the most important part of being a real estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah. So from a new first-time home buyer, let's say it's maybe that young couple or maybe that single mom or whoever that's looking to talk to you, what advice would you give that first-time home buyer when they've already done their due diligence? And if you see my videos, I've talked about the important things to do before you even go out to interview anybody. Do your budget, make sure you know where your finances are, all that good stuff.
Right.
Once they've done that and it's time to interview an agent, what are some recommendations that you would have, whether it's you, whether it's another agent, hopefully it's you, but that you would give somebody to help them or empower them to know that they've hired the right agent?
For sure. I would say sit down with a couple agents, get to know them, because Zillow reviews, all of these things are important, but you really have to make sure that your personalities mesh as well, because you're going to be spending, let me start that over.
It's okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
I would say the biggest thing is Zillow reviews are super important and all of that, do your due diligence research, but one of the most important things I would say is meet with the agent or a few agents, make sure that your personalities mesh, because you're going to be spending a lot of time with this agent. You're going to be spending 3 hours at a home inspection with them, countless showings.
Yeah.
And you're trusting this person with one of the biggest investments you're going to make in your life. So I think it's really important to get to know the agent on a personal level to better your experience and make it the least stressful and most exciting, because it is an exciting time in your life and you want to make sure that it's smooth and goes well.
Yep. So you touched on something there where you said the Zillow reviews, those are important. How much weight would you say when you're speaking with somebody they put on, like, hey, this person's the #1 producer on their team and they've got this Zillow rating? How much of that actually matters, and is that important? I'm not saying it's not, but how much of it is actually important when they're meeting with somebody?
In my opinion, top producing volume agents, kudos to them. There's a lot to be said about that. But to get an actual 5-star rating from a client, it takes a lot for someone to write a review. And for them to write you a 5-star review, I think that says more than any award. To me, the reviews are the most important.
Yeah, and it's not negating rewards, by the way. I'm not saying that. Awards are great. I love awards.
Yes.
But for me and my clients, what I usually do if I'm meeting with somebody for the first time, I'm like, hey, you know what? Here's a little bit of information about our bank, our team, and check out our Google reviews, because those are real people. Like you said, that took the time out to write something nice about you, hopefully. And, it's something that they are sharing that's a personal experience. Whereas some of the others might just be other industry people voting
correct
on each other, which has its own things going on with it. But I like real experiences, especially when I'm reviewing a company or want to look up a company. I go to their Google reviews.
Same.
I'll go to like Amazon reviews when I'm purchasing gear like my iPad or the camera that I'm shooting with.
Right.
Because I want to see what people who have actually used the product say about the product. And in this case, the product is the agent.
Absolutely.
So.
I agree with that 100%.
Yep.
So Paul, clients tell me all the time that they don't want to speak with a lender or worry about their pre-approval until we've found the perfect house.
Right.
However, it's really the opposite scenario.
A lot of people don't realize how important it is to understand the financing side before they even shop.
Right.
And I've done videos on it. I've talked to the clients, especially the ones that you've sent over that are great. And you see it with first-time home buyers, but you also see it with people who have bought houses before too, which you would think after buying your first house that you would know these things, but it's something that needs to be reminded every time. Having those finances in order is super important, and the pre-approval process is involved with that. Biggest mistakes that people make is, like I've said before, they don't set a budget. And when they don't set a budget, they kind of have this idea of what it is to be pre-approved, right? Because as a lender, what we're going to do is we're going to pre-approve them based upon their gross income. That's the income before they pay their car payments, the income before they get their taxes taken out, before the cell phone bill, before the grocery bill, all that stuff. So people look at, I make about, $5,000 a month. I can afford this much payment, but they really haven't done their due diligence to set a budget. And I tell them, set a budget every time, know what you can afford. Because what I'm going to do in my end is I'm going to pre-approve you based on that gross income. But that's also on me as a lender. So as me as a lender, I want to know, hey, what's your monthly income? Or what's your monthly budget? And if they say, well, I don't know, I kind of pause the conversation. I don't stop the conversation, but I reiterate to them, it's important for you to have a budget because this is how it works. And then once that has been done, they've set a budget, they've talked with us, we've pre-approved them, and we've now, between the client and the lender, have set this price bubble, if you will, of this is how much you can afford. Now the pressure's off.
Right.
They know exactly what they can go look at. Because if they don't do that, and they start looking at houses first, you've seen it, what happens? They get emotionally attached to a house or an idea of a house or the perfect house or whatever it is. And if they don't get it or they don't get pre-approved for it, their world is crushed.
Yes.
And then they're discouraged. They don't want to shop. They stop answering their calls. They're like, go pound sand, Danny, don't call me back. But it's because they didn't do their due diligence first.
Right.
Pre-approvals are super important. They're very important before they even talk to the realtor. And a good realtor, like yourself, is always going to say, hey, why don't you go get pre-approved first?
Right. So what can they expect in the pre-approval process?
So the pre-approval, as I discussed, is going to be based upon your gross income. But some of the practicals that we're going to need, we'll ask for things like 2 months of bank statements. We want to see where your assets are like. And in there, we want to look for a couple things. One, do they have money in the bank? Because buying a house involves some expenses. So we want to see where those assets are.
Absolutely.
Number two, we want to look at your pay stubs, preferably for the last month, because we want to make sure that you have stable income. If you're a variable employee, what that means is that you're hourly or maybe your commission or something like that. There's some other things that we'll need, but when you speak with a lender, they'll require it or they'll tell you about it and all that.
Right.
And then we look at your debts, the thing that nobody likes to talk about. And look, I've seen it all. Debt is a reality, but talk with your lender. They're going to help turn that debt word, that 4-letter word, they're going to try and take that fear off of it because most people have debt. That's a separate conversation, but we want to make sure that the debt that you do have, even though you have it, that we can make it work within the confines of what you're looking for in a house. Once we go through that, we calculate everything based upon a debt to income ratio. And after we have that, we know exactly where you're at, how much you can afford, what kind of loan program you can get into, and what that's going to cost you estimated per month and at the closing too.
Makes sense. Another question a lot of clients ask me is, how does it affect your credit score getting pre-approved?
Yes. Credit score. Here's the thing. Is it a hard inquiry on your credit? Yes, it's a hard inquiry on your credit. We have to. We need to know where your credit score is. However, it's not atypical for a client to go to lender A, B, and C and shop rates. What they don't know is in that time frame, and I don't want to give specifics because it varies depending on the bureau, but to be safe, I say if you're shopping for rates within 2 weeks, there's really nothing to be worried about so much in terms of how many inquiries you're putting on your credit. Because in that time frame, those bureaus are going to know that you are shopping for a home. And in that time, they're going to look at the last pulled credit report as the inquiry. Again, we're speaking generalities here because there are some other stipulations to that. But I would say to somebody, if they're going to shop rates, do it within a 2 week time frame. And it'll affect your credit because it's a hard pull. However, the recovery period, you're going to recover right back within a couple weeks. I would dare to say within a month. So it's nothing to be super scared about.
That's great information.
Yeah.
Thanks, Paul.
A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Go ahead and speak in your mic. Just talk.
Hi.
Oh.
All right, so when we're talking to each other,
Yeah, we're just talking just like this.
are we looking there?
Our bodies are positioned this way, and we're just talking. And sometimes we can look over there,
Got it.
but it's
Okay.
just a conversation.
Got it. Okay.
All right, cool. I am enjoying this Smoketown beer. What'd you get?
It's amazing. I got a half seltzer, half cider. How do you want me to promote that?
There
I
we go.
like that. Okay.
All right, we'll just start.
Okay.
This is fun.
This is
You
fun.
don't have to be nervous.
Do I look
always-
nervous?
No, at first, but now you're good. Now, do you want to ask me questions? I'm looking at your notes. I'll edit this part.
How far down does it go?
It stops like.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Start this over.
Yeah, start. Go ahead.
Okay.
Here, let me.
Okay.
start